My nose is struggling today, y'all. You can probably hear it in my voice. However, I can still smell. I feel healthy. It's just that my nose decided to phone it in today for some reason. When he comes back, we're gonna have a talk. But for now, we have a fun video planned for you guys today because you guys wanted to see another installment to this series that I'm calling 5 upgrades to 5 eternally hyped fragrances. If you are brand new to this series, you've missed a lot, but that's okay. I'm gonna link to some kind of playlist up at the top where you can get caught up on what this is, but I will give you a brief overview of what we're doing here because this is not just another top 5 or top 10 list based around some general functional topic. That's fun, but sometimes it's just more fun to go below the surface, to dig a little deeper. So first and foremost, I'm using the word upgrades very loosely, and I'm primarily using it as a means to draw you in to watch this video because I put a lot of time into these videos. And if I don't word the titles just right, I'm talking to crickets. So if you came here because you wanted some upgrades, thank you for being here. And these may or may not be upgrades, but the term upgrade is subjective. I'm not defining it definitively. So we're more talking about alternatives here. These are alternatives to 5 fragrances that you already know, you might love, you might hate, but at the very least you see everywhere, all over YouTube, all over the fragrance community. I just want to instill some newness into your life by anchoring it, tethering it to the familiar so you have some point of reference, but ultimately you're getting something you haven't quite experienced before, maybe. Second and foremost, if that's a thing, the fragrances I am quote unquote replacing are not bad fragrances. The last thing I'm trying to say by having them as the primary subject of a video like this is that they are worth overlooking. They are no longer worth talking about. They're no longer worth trying. Absolutely not. They are super hyped, super talked about, well loved for a reason. I get it. So we're not denying that. We're not invalidating that. Third and foremost, I really need to stop with that. These replacements to these popular fragrances will not be fragrances that are the same but better, cheaper versions, stronger versions, nor more mass appealing versions. And how am I measuring hype in this case? Well, you can do a YouTube search. You can see all these fragrances being talked about, some of them for years and years in the past. But if you want the numbers, a good little view into the numbers, you go in Fragrantica, which is one of the most trafficked public forums for all things fragrance. And I look at the number of votes on a particular fragrance, not the comments, not the rating, none of the projection, compliments, none of that, just the number of votes, good or bad. That number will give you a pretty good idea as to how popular or well known a fragrance is in the fragrance community at the very least. And the reason is because we can rest assured that that number you see is probably only a fraction of the number of people who actually know this fragrance, have tried it, and might even love it, just they don't really talk about it. Not everyone shares about what they love. I think sometimes the number of votes does not accurately represent how popular a fragrance is, and you'll see at least 1 or 2 examples of that in this video. Final thing I want to say is that all of the fragrances that I'm going to be recommending to you, and maybe even the ones I'm replacing, can be found at Max Aroma, whom we talk about every single month. What I love the most about Max Aroma, in addition to some of their great deals and their selection, is that they offer these little travel decants. You guys know I'm big on decants. Are these decants cheap? Some of them, no, not really, but they're definitely less expensive than buying a full bottle. It's just less of a commitment. So it's up to you. You don't have to pay any money. You could just watch the video. But if you do have an interest in any of these fragrances I'm going to share with you, there will be a link down in the description. And with all that, let's dive right into it. The first fragrance I am replacing, super hyped, well loved, a fragrance that I truly love. It's actually one of my favorites from this house, from the house of Parfums de Marly. It is Sedley. Now, Parfums de Marly is known as a niche house. It is kind of a shaky example of a niche house, but no matter what you would call it, I would not call Sedley a niche fragrance. That's okay. This is a mainstream fragrance. This is a high-end mainstream fragrance, and that's fine. I'm going to use 3 descriptors to describe this fragrance in very broad, simple terms, and that will be the anchor point to which I am tying its replacement, so you can see how they would have some overlap. They do have some similarities, but they're not going to smell the same. Sedley is what I would describe as clean, aromatic, and bro. Yes, bro. It is clean. It's fresh. There's a citrus quality. There's mint. There's this uplifting kind of shower gel feel. It feels clean. It feels like you just took a shower. That's good. Make sure you actually take real showers. And the bro aspect of it is that, again, it smells kind of basic. It smells simple. It smells like something you'd smell on just a guy. Whoever this guy is, he's not really unlike most other guys out there who just want to smell good and smell clean. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but they're kind of a dime a dozen. The good thing is you get the choice as to whether or not you want to be that guy. Some days you might. Some days you might want to stand out. Anyway, we see this all over the place. You see the number of votes on the screen. That's actually lower than I thought, and maybe than you might think, at least on Fragrantica. This fragrance is everywhere, so I'm surprised to see it's only less than maybe 4,000 votes or something, but let's see what else we can talk about. Another fragrance that I would describe as clean, aromatic, and bro would have to be Blue Agave from Precious Liquid. Now, I will easily say that Blue Agave is a little less bro than Sedley. It is still leaning in the bro category. There is this borderline mainstream, fresh, aquatic, clean, masculine feel. However, what I love about this fragrance is the naturalness of it. It smells more three-dimensional. It smells like something in the real world. I get this relatively realistic, dry woodiness, salty aquatic feel. I honestly cannot describe the scent of agave much to you, but to me, I get something mildly sweet, maybe a little green in a way. There's something kind of herbal. Either way, it's a fresh, woody, natural aquatic with this interesting green feel. Again, slightly sweet. Ultimately smells clean, kind of sexy. Anyway, let me know what you think of Blue Agave. It is available once again at Max Aroma, but let's talk about it down in the comments. This is from the house of Prada, and it is Luna Rossa Black, and this fragrance is a beloved scent. A lot of people would call this the best in the Luna Rossa collection. I would call it one of the best. It's in my top 3 for sure, but not my favorite, but it is really good. It's a lovely scent. It's something that I would describe as powdery, vanillic, and alluring. There's something about it that is soft. It's understated. It's a little quiet. It is sweet, powdery. I think there's Angelica in here, which adds this sweet, musky, rooty feel. This like slight green earthiness in there that I think adds its masculine touch. It keeps it from smelling super unisex, because when you think of a sweet powdery vanilla, some of you might think of a feminine fragrance. At the very least, you might think of something right down the middle, but this thing does lean masculine. However, it is definitely not unknown. You can see the number of votes here. It's probably almost 6,000 votes. So what else we got? From the house of Goldfield and Banks, man, I love this stuff. I really enjoy this fragrance. Again, I would also describe it using the same descriptors. This is Silky Woods Elixir. Once again, Goldfield and Banks. And once again, powdery, vanillic, and alluring. But this is more on the ambery side of things, more on the resinous side of this vanilla, more than this creamy, mainstream, edible smelling vanilla. That's not exactly the Prada, but it is leaning more that way. This is leaning a little bit more natural, spicy, resinous, sweet vanilla, warm, a little oud in there that adds a little bit of this woody depth that makes it maybe a little bit more masculine, if you're asking me, even more so than the Prada. Again, not exactly the same as the Prada, but can serve the same function, has a similar personality, but not the same identity. Let me know if you dig this one. That is Silky Woods Elixir from Goldfield and Banks. Absolutely no stranger to the community, and one that I was really surprised to see has a relatively low number of votes. It has barely over 1,000 votes on Fragrantica, which makes no sense. It does not match the hype of this fragrance. This fragrance is easily overhyped. It's all over the dang place for all of the wrong reasons. This is Vibrato from Sospiro. I would describe it as fresh, musky, and easy. It's an easy fragrance. It's a simple fragrance, not a whole lot going on here. It technically has maybe a grapefruit or some kind of sharp citrus quality to it with these powdery notes. I don't get a ton of depth out of this. I don't get a lot of development on my skin. It stays relatively the same. It smells really good. It performs well. I think the reason why people love this so much is because it performs well for a fresh fragrance, and it seems to get a lot of compliments. And I guess if that's all you want, then you can go for this, but my hope is that you actually love the way it smells, not just what it does for you, because if you don't have it, then who are you? How do you actually affirm yourself? What is your identity if it's not being affirmed by other people, whether or not they like how you smell? Let me step off the soapbox. What are we gonna replace this with? This is not my favorite from this house, but I do like it. It's an easy wear. I think it's a great alternative to Vibrato. This is from Micallef, and this is GnTonic. GnTonic is nice. It's really good. I would say I love it the most within that first hour. Within the first hour, it has this very definitive, clear personality to it. Kind of minty, uplifting, tonic-like feel. Not super boozy, but very aromatic, very cooling. But after that, it kind of turns like soapy, musky, generic. Just being honest, it doesn't have anything special to it as it dries down. But it at least does change a little bit, maybe more so than Vibrato, at least on my skin. So I actually find it a little bit more interesting than Vibrato, at least from start to finish. It is not really all that special, but it's a great alternative. It's one that is perfect for the same occasions that you might wear the Sospiro for. I can't say it's going to perform the exact same way. Performance is not a guaranteed variable because
it's a variable.
A guaranteed variable, that is an oxymoron in itself. So you have to test it for yourself to make sure it's going to live up to your standards. But if you do happen to like this one, if it does live up to your standards, let me know what you think. And if you haven't tried it, maybe check out GnTonic from Micallef. This is more of a spring summer fragrance. If it's still warm where you are, this is great, but it works any time of the year. You can be fresh anytime.
Stay fresh.
You get it. From Givenchy, well, it has this absurdly long name, which I believe is Gentleman Givenchy Eau de Parfum Reserve Privée. Why? This is just the designer world. This is how these names become. Anyway, regardless of the name, the scent is very nice. This is a popular one. This one is well loved. I understand why. It is an iris-centric fragrance. I would describe it as sweet, boozy, and classy. Again, these are very simple, surface-level descriptors that allow us to easily tie it to something else that won't smell exactly the same, but will have some similarity and will serve the same function. Once again, but this fragrance is based around iris, some chestnut, maybe some whiskey. It's kind of powdery, sweet. It's definitely floral. It's a little bit boozy. It's very woody, lots of wood. It's a good scent. Nothing I really dislike about it. There are fragrances I just like more that do what this does and have done what this does before this came out, like the Dior Homme line, like Dior Homme Intense or Parfum, Valentino Uomo, that line as well. So it's good. It just doesn't really live up to its predecessors, but it is good. I understand why people like it. But what else can we talk about? With way less than 6,000 votes on Fragrantica, this fragrance, I've been talking about it here and there, maybe more than here and there, all throughout the year. And this is becoming one of my favorites from this house. And it's a perfect fragrance for the same occasions you might wear the Givenchy. This is Alghabra and it is Eye of Seven Hills. It does smell similar to Side Effect from Initio, which we have done a replacement on in a different episode of this series. And while, yes, I could easily say, oh, Side Effect, I would replace it with this. That's too easy. That's too expected. I wanted to not have it be quite so same but better type of comparison with these alternatives. This fragrance does have the same elements. It is sweet. It is boozy. It is classy. I believe there's vanilla. I believe there's also some whiskey. No real floral quality to this one. No nutty quality to this one. If you've smelled Side Effect, honestly, I would call this the same but better. It kind of fills in the gaps where Side Effect feels a little hollow, at least for me. It has a little bit more nuance, a little bit more dimension. I didn't mean to just compare this to Side Effect, but that is what it smells the most like. Anyway, stunning fragrance. If you want something super classy that's boozy and sweet and warm and spicy and kind of seductive for the fall and winter, do check out Alghabra Eye of Seven Hills, and that name is awesome. And finally, we have a stalwart fragrance. This fragrance is a juggernaut as far as hype beasts go, and to be honest with you, I would call it a timeless masterpiece. This is a timeless masterpiece. This DNA, I think it's perfect. There is nothing I would change about it, not even the performance. I know some of you guys don't get that, but that's okay. This is the one Eau de Parfum from Dolce & Gabbana. Nothing new. Timeless masterpiece from perfumer Olivier Polge. If you want to know more about the timeless masterpiece and how I actually define that, check out this video. I think I've done 2 or 3 videos in that series. That's a fun series. It just takes a lot of time. But the One EDP, you don't need me to describe this to you in terms of what it smells like. So I'm just going to use the descriptors. I describe it as warm, spicy, tobacco, and attractive. And I'm using these certain descriptors like attractive and alluring and classy. These descriptors are not meant to tell you what you will smell like when you wear this. This is just the personality of this scent. It smells attractive. So yes, it could make you smell attractive if you look attractive. Make sure you dress the part, guys. That's what matters the absolute most. Even if you walk scentless into a room, you should still be able to pull compliments, so to speak, on your sense of style, on your personality, on how you make people feel. This is just the cherry on top. Anyway, stepping off the soapbox, once again, what are we going to replace this beautiful timeless fragrance with. Definitely a fragrance that is not quite as definitive, I would say, because it is a flanker in a long line of flankers, but in itself, this DNA, I do believe, is an iconic DNA, a beautiful and maybe slightly underrated DNA. You might know this fragrance, honestly. This is not totally unknown, but it's definitely less known and less discussed than the One EDP, and this is Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Extreme. This fragrance has grown on me, and I think what turned me off a little bit when I first tried it was the plum note, but I've grown to love the plum note in this. Plum can smell a little plasticky, a little synthetic, and maybe that's just when it's used in a fragrance, even the most natural variety. Maybe that's just how it can come off depending on how it's treated. I'm not sure. I'm not a perfumer, but the plum is kind of right down the middle. It's almost a little bit on the plasticky side, but it does smell fruity and dark and rich, and it's blended with some warm, spicy elements like tobacco, maybe some cinnamon, that signature L'Homme Ideal DNA with the bitter almond, so it's creamy, it's smooth, but this time it's warmer, it's earthier. It works beautifully for the same occasions as the one. I would wear it on date night, maybe going out to dinner, something in the evening where you want to have a sweet, mysterious, attractive feel to you. Just like the one, I think L'Homme Ideal Extreme will do the same thing. I know a lot of you guys dig this one. Let me know down in the comments, and if you haven't tried it, maybe grab yourself a decant from Max Aroma down below. All right, another episode in the bag. I want to know what you think of this series. You want me to keep it going? Should I find 5 more super hype fragrances and offer alternatives to them? I have a lot of fun with it, and I'll happily keep doing it if you guys want to keep seeing it. Let me know by commenting, by liking, by subscribing. Once again, if you have yet to try any of these fragrances, they will be linked down below at Max Aroma, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.